we're going to go through the checklist of things to do when a loved one dies or when one of your clients dies. And what happens is you have sort of two kinds of people when there's a death in the family. You have the person who becomes completely immobile and is unable to kind of let go and it's hard for them to do anything. On the other hand, you have the person who wants to do everything and get it over with as quickly as possible. And neither of those types of strategies are going to do well for you. So what we've done is sort of put things in order of the way you would want to do them. And of course, first you're going to need to deal with the funeral. And before deal with all the arrangements for the funeral, you would probably want to look through the trust, look in the safe deposit box, find any individual instructions that you might have and in terms of the burial. And I want to relate a little story that happened to me when my mom passed away. All of my mom's life, she wanted a boat. My father always thought that boats were stupid, and he believed that boats were nothing more than a hole in the water to throw money into, which, by the way, he was right. But in any event, that's what he wanted. When my dad passed away, he wanted to be buried in the mountains. He had been a hunter. He wanted his ashes sprinkled in the mountains, and we had the discussion at the funeral home, and my mother finally told us that no, she decided she wanted Dad's ashes there at the mortuary so that when she passed, that hers would be there with him. When Mom passed away, we told them that yes, we wanted Mom's ashes with Dad's, and so we talked to the funeral home, and they informed us that no, that in point of fact that Dad's ashes were not there, that my mom had him buried at sea. So we did find the receipts, but we also found in her trust just a note saying this is what she wanted. So people do have those things, notes left around, so you'd want to look at that. So the funeral it might involve more than what you think it is. You need to find out, do they have a prepaid burial trust, and if so, was it with a company that's still around? Have they been sold? Has the name been changed? So it does involve a bit of work. Most of the mortuaries are pretty good about guiding you through the various forms and legal things that you need to do. And one of those things that you'll want to do is get 5 to 10 copies of the death certificate. And this is done through the mortuary. They will take care of that for you, and you'll want to order that right away. It usually takes about a week to 10 days, and you will need the death certificate to take care of all of the issues that you have regarding finances and things like that. You'll want to locate and review other documents. You will want to find the will, the trust, you'll, if possible, find a birth certificate, and you want to notify the Social Security Administration. So you'll need the Social Security card. So you want to notify the Social Security Administration so they can stop the payments of the Social Security. Now, if the person lived alone, you want to make sure that you make arrangements for any pets and notifying the U.S. Postal Service. Now, this is a challenge. My uncle passed away recently. My brother-in-law is the successor trustee, and he was the executor. We thought that it would just be easy. He thought it would be easy to go down to the post office and say, hey, Uncle Ray passed away. We need to change his mail. And they said, oh, no. They needed a copy of the trust. They needed a bunch of forms signed, and it took 4 trips. And by the way, you can't do this by phone. It took 4 trips to the post office. In the meantime, bills are being sent and being either held at the care facility where he lived at, or in many cases, sent back to the sender. And there were a number of charges, late charges and things like that on credit card bills. You can change an address, a postal address online. It might be worth paying the $1 it costs to simply go online and do it. Otherwise, be prepared with a copy of that death certificate, which was the other thing they required. Copy of the death certificate and a copy of the trust for the post office to take care of that. So again, something that would seem easy is not necessarily. You talk to the landlord, let them know what's going on, start a discussion about whether you're going to keep or how long you're going to keep the property. Decide whether you want to cancel cell phones, probably certainly the newspapers, cable, satellite TV, magazines, extra phone lines, anything that's going to run up an additional charge, you would probably want to cancel. You probably also want to see about canceling credit cards, if not immediately, sometime quickly thereafter. What happens is that the death notice is typically in the newspaper, so it's an additional opportunity for fraud to possibly happen. So you want to kind of get a grip on that in getting out of the gate. If the decedent has an email, I would suggest keeping it for a few months. There are many financial transactions and other things that are sent to the client's email address. This brings about a sometimes difficult situation where we want to find out what the usernames and passwords are. So one of the things that you might want to recommend that your clients do is provide a copy of that information to a trusted family member or to the successor trustee, because finding things after the person is gone, sometimes you can't access those accounts, you can't access the credit cards, and you don't really know what's there. So I know Renee had an experience with a family member who passed away where they couldn't find the online account for, what was it, an online poker?
Yeah, interestingly enough, he did. He had an online poker account, and we knew that it was there, but we were having a hard time finding it. And you're right, Lynn, the email can be invaluable in those situations because it can help give you possibly their username or let you know really what's there. And so we thought he had it, and then he received an email which gave us a link that we could click on. Of course, that meant still we had to play the game of trying to figure out what his password was, which was an entertaining game between my cousins and I, but we were able to figure it out. That email can be very helpful. I also think it's interesting, Lynn, you mentioned just a minute ago things that you don't want to do right away. And like you said, you and I have been through some interesting family situations recently, and I was talking to a friend, and she was talking about the fact that her mother had passed away over 20 years ago, but she is still upset with her brother and sister because the first thing they talked about the day her mother died, hours after her mother died, was how much money they were getting and when they were getting it. And, these situations can be so emotional with family members that I think this list is really helpful. That there are those things you need to handle right away, like the funeral. And then those other things, it's best to let them wait just a little while so we're not upsetting people unnecessarily.
Right, and we're also not setting up some expectations that may turn out to be false, because when you dig into it, you never really know what liabilities or debts there are for the decedent either. So better just sort of let that lie for a while. So now the next thing that you want to do is the things that can wait a little while. Calling the advisors. You want to talk to the CPA, the enrolled agent, the attorney, insurance agent, stockbrokers, investment people. And I remember years ago, I had a client named Sam. Sam was a retired military officer. He had been married for 30 plus years. His wife passed away, and he married this new woman who was an interesting sort. And I met them through an insurance agent who had sold him a life insurance policy. And Sam's wife called me at 6:30 in the morning saying that, hysterical, saying that she was worried that Sam had killed himself, and she was worried that the insurance policy was not going to pay off because it wouldn't pay off in a suicide. In the end, so she did something very quickly that could have waited a while to call me, and in point of fact, Sam's second wife was eventually convicted of murder. So that was interesting that she gave me that little call. So you also would want to check with the employer, the union, the military. Make sure you have final paycheck, final benefits. There may also be some burial or funeral benefits from an employer or prior employer, pensions. If they're still working, go to the office to get their personal property out of the office, union benefits, veterans benefits, all of those things. You want to start locating the assets and liabilities that are easy to find, bank accounts, brokerage accounts, life insurance policies, and don't forget to notify the life insurance company so they can start the process. You want to find the pink slips for the cars, list of the real property, securities, partnership interests, anything that's not held at a brokerage account, safe deposit boxes and keys, credit cards, other bills that they might have had. And one of the ways to find out what this is to go to the tax return. If you were not preparing the tax return for the individual, by looking at Schedule A and Schedule E, you will likely find anything that had income reported. And I would look at the past couple of years to see if there's income or anything reported from a particular investment that may not just be lying around that you have easy access to. So then there are a number of things that you don't have to do until much later, like prepare for the 706. If there is a taxable estate, I have a list there on page 92 that gives you all of the things that you're going to need to give to the attorney, or that you're going to need for yourself to prepare that file 706. You also want to file claims for final medical expenses, make sure that the health insurance pays them, again, life insurance. If there is a 125 flexible spending arrangement with the employer, you want to turn those expenses into the employer. The employer may not just automatically contact you and say, oh, hey, you have this money. You probably need to check on that. If there's a trust, you want to see who is the new trustee and what has to be done there. And if there's a will, determine whether or not probate's required. And we'll be talking a lot about that later. And finally, in the end, you're going to pay all the debts or make sure that they're paid. Check with the attorney. Make sure that if there's probate, that there's sufficient funds to pay all the creditors. Hold back things until the probate is complete to make sure that everything's taken care of. To find out if bank CDs should be closed, and most will not have a penalty for early withdrawal in the case of a death. But you're going to have to tell the bank that. They don't just do it automatically. Talk to advisors before you make plans, and figure out whether you have current contingent beneficiaries. Who are they and where are they? We had a beneficiary in my uncle's estate that was a foreign beneficiary. We were finally able to find him through the miracles of the internet. We found him on Facebook, and that has added a whole another level of excitement to taking care of that. But then you're also going to want to get the apartment or the house cleaned out, distribute or dispose of the personal property. I'm going to tell you right here, be careful what you leave, because when you die, people go through your stuff. My mother was a writer. She wrote Christian devotionals, and she actually made a fair amount of money. After she died, we found that she was working on a Harlequin novel. If you don't know what those are, they're Fabio-type novels, and that was kind of surprising. So be aware that anything that you might have lying around is going to come to the surface after you have gone. Going on to page 93, I have a checklist here. This is something that I recommend that you give to any of your clients. 5 things not to do immediately. First of all, do not put the child's name on the house before the death. Doing that is going to create a gift tax problem. They do it so that the title will pass easily. People think that maybe they can avoid the Medi-Cal issues, which we'll talk about later, and will not in fact happen. But I think this title on the house will pass easily when the person dies. But there are all kinds of problems by doing this. The problem is that, again, in not only the gift tax return, but if the person doesn't pass away, the child whose name is on the house owns the house and can evict the house, can evict the parent. The child is going to have creditors pounding down their doorstep if that house is still there. So instead, what you want to do is consider forming a trust for the surviving parent. Be a living trust, making sure that the title passes to the children, creating no title problems, and one or more of the children could serve as an alternate trustee or a successor trustee in case the parent can't take care of things. And you can even have the bills sent to the parent. You also don't want to do a reverse mortgage. You want to be careful of a reverse mortgage on page 93 and 94. Some people will say, oh my gosh, mom doesn't have enough money to survive, so we're going to do a reverse mortgage. We'll get money for her. But remember that the mom's Social Security will likely increase. She's going to be entitled to the greater of 100% of her Social Security or 100% of what dad was receiving. Her household expenses should drop because there's only one of them. And if she really needs the money, one of the children could lend her the money. The problem with doing the reverse mortgage, one of them is, the biggest problem, of course, is that it's very, very expensive. The second problem is that if the surviving parent is going to want to qualify for Medi-Cal or Medicaid benefits later, the reverse mortgage, depending on how it's set up, could hinder that. So the next thing on page 94 is don't let one family member move in. So you've got the two children, and then one of them is very responsible, has a lot of assets, but is working, and the other one is kind of a ne'er-do-well, and says, I'll move in and I'll take care of mom since dad's passed away in exchange for living in the house for free. Probably Sonny is not going to take care of mom very well, or at least not as well as his sibling believes he should be. He's still unemployed. He's been unemployed most of his life because he's not a terribly responsible person. And without a rental agreement, it may be difficult, if not impossible, to get him out. And one of our other speakers is having that scenario with a brother-in-law and the mom. He's been living there rent-free for so many years, and they can't get him out. They've been to depositions, and they're going to court soon. It's costing a lot of money to get the guy out. And the child living there may not take care of the property and in fact decrease the value of the property. So instead, consider hiring somebody to help. If you are going to let the brother live there, have a written agreement, month-to-month agreement, and make sure that you have a way to more easily get them out. Or mom can go back and forth between the children. The next one is selling possessions. Again, some of the children are going to want to, let's just get rid of them. Just get rid of everything. I just want to get this over with. I want to get it done. I want closure. And the other one is going to feel an emotional attachment to the things. And so it's going to be a potential for strife. You absolutely do not want to start doling stuff out at the funeral. That's always a bad idea for many reasons. And the legal reason is that there may be somewhere in the paperwork a list of items that have been promised to people, or a list that the decedent left saying, I want Susie to get the vase and I want Johnny to get the cannon. So that's something. It's better to wait. What my uncle had put together in his paperwork, which was a great idea, was to set a date at least a month after the funeral and each beneficiary was given a number, draw a number, and they went and picked one by one what assets they want, and it actually went very, very smoothly. So that was really nice, even though a lot of the people didn't like each other. It went very smoothly. Also, don't distribute property and pay bills without tax and legal advisors. You want to make sure to protect the executor/trustee if things are paid incorrectly and the money is distributed and there's a liability. The trustee/executor are going to be personally liable for that. So you want to make sure that they at least hold some money back before they start distributing.
Lynn, I just wanted to point out that I think that executor trustee liability is something very important to make sure that people are aware of. And we're going to talk about trustee duties a little later in the materials, but really the laws are designed to protect the beneficiaries because they're the ones who aren't in control. Unfortunately, the way it ends up working in some cases is that you can have a disgruntled beneficiary who tries to file a lawsuit against the executor or the trustee, and those lawsuits are always very costly, whether the trustee did anything wrong or not. And so taking some time before you make those distributions, really clarifying exactly what everyone's rights are it's not going to just save some hurt feelings down the line or having to take things back and redistribute them, but it's also going to help reduce the likelihood of one of those really expensive lawsuits.
That's right. In fact, I was talking to a good friend of mine who just completed, settled an estate for her client, one of the clients, and the sister, the sister, it was a brother and sister, and the sister sued the brother for saying that he stole from the estate, which turns out he had not. But the cost of the legal fees were about $5,000 less than the $200,000 estate by the time all was said and done. So again, very, very expensive, and you need to be very careful about sending money out, distributing any money until all of that is